Hey, welcome to our next section, SQL Server Basics. In this section we'll walk you through the overview of SQL Server and SQL Server Components. Then we'll see how does it work on Linux. Then we'll move on to learn about SQL Server Objects and SQL T Basics. At the end we'll look at working environments and tools. Now we move on to the first video of this section that deals with an overview of SQL Server working on Linux. In this video we'll learn the concepts of client-server architecture and the SQL Server Components. When writing queries, it's important to understand that the interaction between the tool of choice and the database based on the client-server architecture, and the processes that are involved. It's also important to understand which components are available and what functionality they provide. With a broader understanding of the full product and its components and tools, you'll be able to make better use of its functionality, and also benefit from using the right tool for specific jobs. In client-server architecture, the client is described as a user or device, or both, and the server is a provider of some kind of service. As you can see in this figure, the client is represented as a machine, but in reality it can be anything. So it can be custom application like desktop, mobile, web, or administration tools like SQL Server Management Studio, DBForge, SQL CMD, or development environments like Visual Studio or Kdevelop. Now let's have a look at the SQL Server Components. So Microsoft SQL Server consists of many different components to serve a variety of organizational needs of their data platform. Some of these are listed on your screen. You may think, so how does it work on Linux? Let me explain this. SQL Server is a product with a 30-year-long history of development. We're speaking about millions of lines of code in a single operating system that is Windows. The logical question is how Microsoft successfully ports these millions of lines of code to the Linux platform so fast. SQL Server on Linux officially became public in the autumn of 2016. This process would take years of development and investment. Fortunately, it was not so hard. From version 2005, the SQL Server database engine had a platform layer called SQL Operating System, or SOS. It's a layer between the SQL Server engine and the Windows operating systems. The main purpose of SOS is to minimize the number of system calls by letting SQL Server deal with its own resources. It greatly improves performance, stability, and the debugging process. On the other hand, it's platform dependent and does not provide an abstraction layer. That was the first big problem encountered even before beginning to think about creating the Linux version. Project Drawbridge is a Microsoft research project that was created to minimize virtualization resources when a host runs many VMs on the same physical machine. The technical explanation goes beyond the scope of this course, so you can read about it more on this website. Drawbridge brings us to the solution of the problem. Linux solutions use a hybrid approach that combines SOS and LibertyOS from the Drawbridge project to create SQL PAL, or SQL Platform Abstraction Layer. This approach creates a set of SOS API calls that do not require Win32 or NT calls, and separates them from the platform-dependent code. This is a dramatically reduced process of rewriting SQL Server from its native environment to the Linux platform. This figure gives you a high-level overview of SQL PAL. If you're interested in grabbing more information on this, you can browse to it at blogs.techneck.microsoft.com. In this video we had an overview of SQL Server.